Okay, so we're going. Oh, the microphone. Where's the microphone? Ah, it's under you. There's the microphone. Let's put that up here so it'll hear me. Okay, so guys, this was your homework for today, which today is the second day of the second week. That's sort of how I tend to organize stuff, is by how many weeks into the semester we are. And what I asked you guys to do was to make this first element. I gave you in-class instructions on how to do that, and I asked you to not glue it in. So I asked you instead to pin it in with a few of your Taylor's pins. And you're going to see why it is that I'm asking you to do that in a moment. So let me put a couple of these in here. That's good enough. Two of them will hold it. Okay, so what we talked about last week, how spatial subtraction looks very different than surface subtraction. Okay, so spatial subtractions can be very simple like this, where just one piece gets cut out, or there can be channels that interlock with each other. Okay, that, so yeah, tilt that better? So there can be channels that interlock with each other that kind of expand the one cut that you've made. And that's what we're going to do today, is we're going to expand upon that. So I created this image after you guys had left. See that okay?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. And so that was the first cutout that you guys were sort of to do. And one of the things to be careful of is which direction, right, the long leg and the short leg are. As in the past, I've had students that mixed that up and they went the wrong direction. So you know what I typically tell students is, hey, grab your box and look at the image and see if they look the same, right? See that they're not reversed, okay? All right, so today what we're going to do is we're going to create the second cut and the third cut, and that all link up to this first cutout that we're doing here, okay? All right, so the second cut, I'll hold this up so that it sees that. Does that see that clearly?
Yes.
Okay. I'm showing you the second cut right here in relation to the first one already made. But it's not cut out yet. It's just showing you the dimensions of the cutout. There's only 2 dimensions given, right? And so that tells you that the third dimension, which would be from the ground up, right, is already lining up with the one that's there. Okay? That makes sense? All right. So when I look at that, I say, okay, so when I face my box, right, this cutout is going off to the left if I'm looking at the corner. So here's my box, and it's going to go off to the left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay out, I'm going to extend this floor line dimension back, and then I'm going to measure up 8 feet and back 12 feet, and I'm going to draw that in there. Okay? So here goes. Oh, I need my ruler. Not my ruler, I need my triangle. All right, so using the triangle, I'm going to move this forward. So I'm going to extend the floor. This gets tricky with the pins sticking out of it. Does it see this okay?
Yes.
All right, so I'm going to kind of extend that floor back like that. Okay, so let the camera see that, let you all see that. I just kind of drew it back. You could have measured up 4 feet and then drawn over to that line. Either way, okay? So that's my floor level. Now my height is 8 feet. So I'm reading that off of this drawing right here, right? So 8 feet at 1/4 of an inch to a foot. So I go back to quarter scale. It's right here. And I go up 8 feet. All right, and the same thing, I've got to tilt it down like this and use my triangle against this. Remember, even here, there's like stuff that you got to be careful of. This has got to be sitting flush, okay? Right there is the second line. You see that? All right, so now comes the third line, and this is one of the places where we have to kind of give some thought to it. And my assumption is that you guys are already doing this in the other class. Okay? Now, if you're doing it in the other class, you realize that when you look at it in ghosted mode, you kind of see the inner surfaces. Have you double set the thicknesses? Yeah? So you can see that there's thicknesses. So what we're going to want to do is we want this to become an outdoor area. But when we look at it, I'm going to go ahead and draw onto here. There is going to be a wall thickness that I've got to attach to right there. Right? It's going to be the thickness of this right here. So I got to give some thought to that. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this thing out, right? And I've got to cut it out from two different things. One of the things that I've got to cut it out from is this box, right? So I've got to cut my piece out 12 feet back. But one of the things you got to remember is that there's also a piece that has to be cut out of this, okay, of this surface. So let's go ahead and give that a try. All right, so I'm sorry, I got to measure back 12 feet. So measure back 12 feet. Alejandro, one of the other things that we try to do is keep the videos under 15 minutes because YouTube has a hissy fit if we go over 15. They make life hard. Okay, so there it is. My 12 foot by 8 foot high thing lining up with the floor. So I'm just going to cut that out. You guys will note that this process is much easier in the computer than it is by hand, right? So that's where we've kind of adjusted the content of 121 so that you guys can actually use what you're learning there as a design tool and explore things in a much easier sort of way. All right, there's one. I'm breaking my rule about not being able to see what I'm cutting because of that darn pin right there. All right, so there's those two cuts. Now I'm going to make my vertical, the one going up and down. And I'm going to save this piece. Okay. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I might do is I might say which direction is up. I'm going to put an arrow and say up. That way I know how it goes back in there. Okay, so there's that. Okay, so that piece came out of there, and I want that thing to set back 4 feet. So we're looking at this dimension right here, and it says 4 feet, right? So now that, unfortunately, is over here on this surface. So you're going to have to probably do a little bit of math, or you can put this piece back in, right, and make sure that this is nice and snug up against there, and then measure over 4 feet. So either way, so that's one of the options. Make sure that's nice and snug, and you can take your scale and measure over 4 feet. So there's my dimension, 4 feet from this outer surface. See that? The height is already known because the height has to match up with this upper height. And I already, unfortunately, made a little bit of a cut there. So I can go ahead now and pull this one out and pull this out, and I can make that cut. And oh, yeah, so here's the first problem I encounter when doing that. I can't cut it on this side very easily. I certainly can't draw on there very easily, so I'm going to have to do it on the back side. So now I've got to figure out, okay, how far was 4 foot over? And it turns out it is 3 foot 3 inches. Okay, go to the back side and measure over 3 foot 3 inches. Why 3 foot 3? Anybody? The 3/16 board, when measured a 1/4 of an inch to a foot, is 9 inches thick. Correct. Good job, Mr. Engineer, soon to be architect. Huh? Something. All right, so what I did is I first measured this side, and then I transposed it to the back, put a mark in. Now I'm going to draw that line. You'll notice that I already had the cut from the side. Oh, you'll notice that I already had the cut from when it went on the side, right, the 8 feet up. So I'm just going to use that line to project over. Same thing once again. That there. And so there's the part that I've got to cut out. Okay? So
you glue those bottom pieces on then?
These two? Mm-hmm. These two you could glue on. This you could not glue into here.
But I'm saying, would it be easier to cut if we hadn't glued those things on?
It's not a big deal.
Okay.
It would be a little bit easier, but it's not. I'll show you. I'll demonstrate right now. How many minutes are we at, my friend?
We're at 11 minutes, or 11 and a half minutes.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this thing out because I don't want to pass that 15-minute mark. All right, and this is the part that she was mentioning, which, oh, might be harder to cut, and it is, but you can do it. You can do it! Water boy. And there's the part that's got to come out. And so there is what that subtraction looks like so far. Now I'm going to have to build a wall on the back of it that's going to go back, and a floor, and a roof, and a little back wall. Okay? So those are all things that I've got to figure out after I put this thing in there, how big they should be. And you could do a little bit of mathematics to kind of figure out how big they should be. So go ahead and stop the video.